So good morning, everybody. Glad to have you here. So let's just take a minute and catch our breath and pay attention to our breath and sit comfortably, and we'll just settle together for a few minutes. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. So the Parsha this week is V'yishlach. And in this week's Parsha, which is mostly focused on Jacob, we see that Jacob is setting out to meet his brother Esau. He's really nervous about this, and he has a dream during which he is wrestling with God or an angel or some kind of God figure. And then he and Jacob do actually meet and they reconcile. The action with Jacob is interrupted by the story of Dinah. And apparently she is raped and her brothers take revenge. And then we get back to Jacob's story, and he's renamed. So his name is changed from Jacob to Israel. And Rachel gives birth to Benjamin, dies in childbirth. And then just before the end of the Parsha, which ends with Isaac's death, we have the genealogy, the lineage of both Jacob and Esau. So it's, this is Genesis, it's action-packed. So two things really grabbed my attention, and I'm going to share that with you before we talk about the Midah, the character trait that came up in this Parsha. I was very interested in Jacob's dream. So one way that we think about dream interpretation is to assume that all of the parts of the dream are different parts of the dreamer, the person who's dreaming. So Jacob, in essence, wrestled with himself. And his better nature prevailed. He was really frightened, and he was coming up with ways to protect his family, feeling really certain that Esau was going to kill him. So that's one part of his wrestling. But the other part of him is that he is by nature a generous, open, and accepting person. And he wanted to reconcile with Esau. He wanted to be in relationship with his brother. And so that's kind of the God part, right, of this wrestling match. So that's interesting to me. We all hold these dichotomies all the time. We often just don't pay attention to them because one is sort of prevalent, or a little stronger. The story about Dinah was really troubling for me. There's a real question as to whether or not she was raped. And from what I've learned is that in that time period, if a woman was raped, was taken against her will, if you will, and the man then wanted to marry her, that the rape was like null and void. It didn't happen because he was making her an honest woman. So, and it's very ambiguous as to whether or not this was consensual or he actually forced himself on her. But Shechem wanted to marry her. He went and begged Jacob to let him marry her. And Jacob's attitude was that you're from a different tribe and our men cannot mingle with your women. And your women cannot mingle with our men. So that was pretty important. However, the brothers struck a deal with Shechem. If you guys get circumcised, you and all of your men get circumcised, then we can intermarry and it'll be fine. And the brothers actually had no intention of meeting, this pledge. They were using the vulnerability of these newly circumcised men to slaughter them. So this is very bothersome for me. So, with this story too, I start wondering about what's the lesson here. We have these parts in us too. We have the capacity to be deceitful, to be angry, to seek vengeance. And we need to notice that. So these were my musings before I started reading the Musar Torah commentary for this week. And in that book, the midah or character trait that's highlighted is yirah, which is translated as both fear and awe. So I found this really interesting. This commentary was written by Rabbi Judith Lazarus Siegel, and she starts her commentary off with the following. Jacob goes through a major life transformation in Parshat Vayishlach, including a wrestling match with God and a change in his name from Jacob to Israel. These changes are reflective of changes in Jacob's character as well, as he goes from a person filled with fear to one who is full of awe and gratitude. His transformation involves resolving old issues and grappling with feelings of guilt over his stealing the blessing and birthright from his brother, and in the process lying to their father, Isaac. As Jacob prepares to see his brother Esau in the morning, he lies restless. The Torah tells us of his state of mind. Quote, Jacob was terrified. So Rabbi Siegel is pointing out here that in Jewish thought, and she goes on to point out that in Jewish thought, fear of God is understood to be complementary to love or awe of God. So fear and awe can be looked at as two distinct, separate traits, or they can be merged into one. And so I think it gets really kind of complicated. So we have this fear of punishment. Divine retribution is something that many of us intellectually don't agree with and don't think about, but it's sort of there in the ether. And we wrestle with that fear so that we can get to the other side of it. There's a measure of confronting our fear, accepting what we're afraid of, that's absolutely necessary before we can tap into the awe that we might feel moving through and forward and conquering our fear. So maybe the ability to conquer the fear and move through it is something that inspires awe. Or maybe it's the knowing that we're not alone. Something that some people might call God has our back. Something has our back. In his book, Heart and Mind, Alan Marinas points out that yirah can be looked at as a reverence. I love that word, reverence. He refers to Isaiah's teaching that the whole world is filled with divine glory. Marinas says that if you are open to perceiving the presence of divinity everywhere and in everything you do, you have the recognition that you're living in a holy world, and that's a blessing and a gift. And I would add that also clearly relates to the notion that you're not alone, that there's something out there that's got your back. In her commentary, Rabbi Siegel points out that Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lazuto taught that we need to redirect our fear from retribution to fear of our own missteps. And he points out that all people have this innate ability to follow an urge to do good or to follow the inclination to do bad. And in his teaching, Rabbi Lazuto reminds us that we need to try to move toward the good and to fear our capacity to behave badly. So we can also use fear, I just want to mention this, as a way to kind of, the fear of punishment can be used as a way to kind of stop us from pursuing our base urges. And to be aware that awe can inspire us to do things so we notice gratitude and we notice blessings every day. And Marinus talks about how we should not fear punishment or retribution for our sins, but we should fear not living up to our full potential, our full spiritual potential. So before we move into our meditation, I'm going to share one more piece from Rabbi Siegel. Jacob reminds us that in our own lives, we can live looking back over our shoulders, worried about the consequences of our wrongdoing, or we can hold on tight to the present moment, struggle with whatever life gives us, and then try to move ourselves toward the midah of awe. We can let the beauty and blessings in our lives inspire us, help us feel grateful, and like Jacob, feel truly blessed. So with that, I invite you to resettle in your seats. Really feeling yourself well grounded. And remembering that ladder from last week, Jacob's ladder, our spines stretching up to the heavens, crown of our head up to the heavens, shoulders down, chest nice and broad, chin tucked a little so that you're not straining your neck. And feeling really supported wherever it is that you're sitting. Going to share some words today that you may choose to use as a mantra. These are the first words that God spoke to Jacob back in chapter 28, and we're past that now. This makes sense for me for today. Hine anochi imach. Take notice, I am with you. That also can be translated as I am within you. Hine anochi imach. I am with you. I am within you. So as you bring your attention to your breath, you might want to continue repeating the phrase to yourself. Hine anochi imach. Take notice. I am with you. And take notice. I am within you. So we'll have about 10 minutes of silence. And I invite you to remember that as your mind wanders, that's a time for you to take notice. And gently and with great self-compassion, simply bring your attention back to your breath. Hine anochi imach. I am with you. I am within you. Hine Anochi Imach. I am with you. I am within you. So I invite you to begin to deepen your breath, slowly and very gently begin to bring your attention outward. And as you are doing so, I am going to read Rabbi Yael Levi's interpretation of this parsha. Alone by the river, Jacob wrestled through the night. As dawn approached, he knew it was time to stop struggling, but he could not let go. He cried into the coming day, I will not give up until I find a blessing in all this conflict and pain. In that moment, the one with whom he was wrestling asked, what is your name? And he responded, Jacob. The last time Jacob had been asked this question, he had answered, I am Esau. This time, Jacob told the truth. And from the truth flowed this blessing. Your name shall not only be Jacob. You will not only be the one who grasps, who holds on, who suffers because he wants things to be different from what they are. Your name shall also be Yisrael, the one who wrestles with God. Also hear this name as Yasher El, the one who is directed toward God, the one who has the strength to set intentions, to follow them, and meet well whatever is encountered. the inclination to grasp and control, the strength to be fully with what is. Both of these capacities exist within you, Jacob was told. Notice when they occur. Be aware of whom and what they serve, and discover how to use them well. Jacob walked into the new day limping, his vulnerability revealed. And he named the place of this place of struggle, truth, and blessing, Peniel, the presence of God.